Hello, I'm Ken with Orion Telescopes and Binoculars, and in this video I wanted to show you the Orion U-mount for larger binoculars, for spotting scopes, for small telescopes. We sell two versions of it. We sell just the head only, just the U-mount itself, if you already have your own sturdy photo tripod. And then we have a package, the U-mount coupled with our Paragon Plus tripod for a full solution so you can get up and running with whatever equipment you want to put on top of it. So let's get down into the details and I'll show you some of the features. Well, the first thing I wanted to show you is how it attaches to a tripod. If you just purchase the U-mount head itself, if you look on the bottom, you'll get a 3/8 16 threaded hole, and then inside that hole will be a 3/8 to 1/4 20 step down insert. Now that's meant to allow the U-mount to attach to pretty much any photo tripod. Pretty much all photo tripods have either a 1/4 20 threaded stud on the top of the tripod below the head, or a 3/8 inch threaded stud. So with, I almost dropped it. With this reducer, you can use either version with your head. The Paragon Plus tripod that we include in the package comes with a 1/4 20 threaded stud underneath the head. So you'll want to attach this sleeve onto the top here. And note, this is our Paragon Plus tripod, but it's missing the head. When you're using the U-mount, you don't want to use the head of your photo tripod. You want to take that off and just use the tripod legs. You don't want an extra set of axes underneath, because that can make this thing unstable. This is the new head of your tripod. So in our package with the Paragon Plus tripod comes with a head as well, but there's instructions in there for removing the head and getting to this point, so refer to those. So I've attached the 3/8 inch stud, threaded insert on top of the tripod. And then you can just attach the vertical pier section on top of that. Thread it down so it's tight. You can actually go underneath and thread down some little locking screws so it's really snug. And then just drop the U-mount on top of that and tighten it down. The U-mount and Paragon Plus tripod combination is rated to hold up to about 25 pounds of equipment, and the width of your equipment should not exceed 11¼ inches, because that's the width of the inner section here, so it wouldn't fit otherwise. So up to 25 pounds. If you're just using the head on your own photo tripod, the U-mount head itself is very robust, machined aluminum. It can probably support up to about 50 pounds of equipment, depending on the size and length. But there's not a lot of tripods underneath it that can hold that much weight. So it would require some very robust carbon fiber, solid, like almost a surveyor's tripod underneath, to hold any more weight than about 25 pounds, which is, again, what we've rated the Paragon Plus and U-mount package for. All right, well, as for the U-mount itself, it is pretty much what it says. It's a fork mount, a U fork mount. And then when you pivot the equipment in the cradle here, I'll aim it this way so you can see along this axis, it pivots from the bottom here. So the equipment is pretty much always in the center of gravity, no matter where you're pointing. If you're pointing it up in the sky, if you're pointing it horizontally, the equipment on top sits at this center of gravity here. So it's pretty much always balanced. You don't need counterweights for it, and it's much more stable than something that, like a photo tripod, when you angle back, the equipment's on top and it gets off of the center of gravity and becomes more vibration prone. The motions in the altitude, up and down direction, and the azimuth, left and right direction, are controlled by these large lock knobs. These are the lock knobs for up and down, and they ride against these ultra low friction bearings. So you have a nice smooth motion. And you can actually, once you grab your scope on there, you can use the scope itself to move it around. Same thing with the azimuth direction. That's this large knob underneath. It's a ultra low friction bearing down there. So again, nice and smooth motions. Just dial in the tension you need and just start pushing the equipment around. In the center, the attachment point, there are several ways to attach. What you see here is a 1/4 20 adapter inside of a Vixen dovetail cradle. So I'm going to loosen this up here, take off the adapter. So this is a 1/4 20 adapter. So any equipment that you've got that uses a 1/4 20 threaded socket hole in the bottom, like a spotting scope, a camera, most all binoculars, especially binoculars if you had an L bracket that's designed to make it attached to a photo tripod, will work with this. There's 2 screws in there. Some equipment have 2 holes, linear, front to back. So you can attach it in 2 points. That's the most secure method if you're using the tripod sockets. But if you only have one tripod socket, like a camera or a spotting scope would probably just have one, you can take one of these things out. It just unthreads out the bottom, leaving you with one that you can adjust to find the center of the gravity point. And then it just sits into the cradle, and then you lock it down with a side. It pinches it down on the dovetail, and you're ready to observe. There are 2 screws, if you notice, 2 socket head cap screws, front and back. Those are safety screws. So if you've got a large binocular on here using the adapter, and this is not entirely tightened down, you see what happened? It falls, let's see, let me angle it this way. It falls backwards, but it stops at that socket head cap screw. So that's a safety mechanism, so it does not fall all the way off. If you are using a Vixen dovetail instead of this plate, many times the Vixen dovetail might be longer than this plate. So if that's the case, these will have to be removed. So just take an Allen wrench and remove these 2 safety socket screws. They're not needed for any function of the actual cradle. But just keep in mind, make sure these are nice and snug. You don't want to loosen these when your equipment is pointing up in the sky, because it can slide backwards. For motions on the U-mount, you've got full control. It pivots 360 degrees in azimuth, so there's no end to the motion. For altitude, it actually gets up to 90 degrees, and if you look, I'm going to angle it against the camera there. If you look here, the bottom of it, where the bottom of your equipment attach, it clears the bottom of the U-mount. So you can get right up to 90 degrees, depending on how long your equipment is. If you're putting a long refractor on here, of course, you might bump into the tripod legs you're using below. But the U-mount doesn't get in the way, so you should have, theoretically, motions all the way up to 90 degrees. This is one of my favorite pieces of equipment to attach onto the U-mount, because it holds it nice and stable, and it's a very big binocular. This is our BT100. On the bottom, you can see I've taken the 1/4-20 adapter off of the mount, and I've attached it to the bottom of the binocular. And this binocular uses actually two screws. There's a center screw for one attachment point, and there's 2 threaded holes front and back. And so I've used both. That way you don't get any pivot. It's a nice secure connection, and works well on this mount. So I've attached it here, and then it's time to just drop it on top in between the arms. And then simply lock down the cradle. All right, nice and snug, and you're ready to go. See, I can point it, it's completely loose right now. I can point it up, I can point it horizontal, it stays balanced. It's a very stable platform for a big binocular like the BT100. All right, well, that's pretty much it. The U-mount and the U-mount and Paragon Plus package, either version, depending on if you already have a photo tripod at home that can carry this much weight. This is a great mount for terrestrial viewing. Let's say you've got the room of the view and you just want to look out at the distant scenery, especially with a big binocular like the BT100. This is perfect. And then since it goes up to 90 degrees and holds things very well balanced, you can use this for astronomy, manual Altaz motion astronomy with either very large binocular like this, or a refractor, or Cassegrain up to whatever size would fit into the 11¼ inch width here. So a very versatile binocular mount for a range of uses. All right, thank you very much. Clear skies.